Since 1881, the shore path in Bar Harbor has offered a beautiful walk easily accessible from the center of the village. Beginning at the town pier, the path follows the shoreline for more than half a mile along Frenchman Bay, offering breathtaking views of the Porcupine Islands, Shudik Mountains, and the Black Hills. The Village Improvement Committee maintains the shore path, but it is the graciousness of private landowners that make the trail possible. While the shore path is a cherished tradition in Bar Harbor, its heritage includes a long history of supernatural encounters. Indeed, the path presents a tour of haunted mansions and a walkway for strange phantoms. The shore path starts out in the shadows of the reading room at the Bar Harbor Inn, a historic structure dating from 1887 that was originally a club for gentlemen. As the saying goes, the only reading done at this club was through the bottom of a glass. Without a doubt, the place provided a place to escape prohibition in Maine, which lasted nearly a century. Under the cover of a reading group, male visitors to Mount Desert Island could drink to their heart's content. The reading room, with its large glass rotunda, is now a restaurant connected to the Bar Harbor Inn. But two phantoms come from the early history of the place. These ghosts appear as two Victorian gentlemen sitting at a table by one of the windows. Be careful, if you see these specters, not to make eye contact. Doing so yields a death-like chill that literally follows you. As the path winds around Hardy's Point, still on the property of the Bar Harbor Inn, the trail crosses the territory haunted by an apparition of a forlorn woman. For centuries, this ghost has appeared at this spot, particularly at dusk. As darkness descends on the shore path, the atmosphere undergoes a complete transformation. Now the wailing cries of seagulls and the rustling of leaves in the ocean breeze sound ominous. At this twilight hour, an apparition returns to stalk the shore. The ghost appears as a woman wearing a long cape. She stands looking out across the water, or she paces back and forth over the worn rocks of the shoreline. Naturally, no wind stirs her cape, or her hair. According to local lore, this is the spirit of a woman awaiting her lover's return from the sea. But there is much more to this tragic story. The tale begins nearly a century before the reading room was built. On the Bar Harbor waterfront lived the Olson family, a young couple and their infant son Luther. The father was a sailor, and the sea apparently claimed him, for he never returned from one of his long voyages. His young wife and child fell into great poverty, but at least they had each other. When Luther was only 5 or 6, he routinely combed the shoreline around Hardy's Point, collecting driftwoods and seeing his mother couldn't afford to buy firewood. Then one day, the young boy disappeared. People in the village thought he had been picked up and taken away by one of the ships. The truth never surfaced. At any rate, Luther Olson was never seen again. But for years, his bereft mother was a figure of despair. She walked out every day to Hardy's Point, watching for her lost son and husband. With her heart broken, she sank into an early grave, but her soul remains out there, condemned to wait in vain through the centuries. Farther down, the shore path passes Albert Meadow, a park, and then Balance Rock, seeming to sit precariously on the coastal ledge. This huge boulder was left behind by a melting glacier during the last ice age. Balance Rock inspired the name of this beautiful inn that stands nearby. The stunning property, which dates from 1902, has its own resident spirits and a history of hauntings going back for generations. Doors have a habit of opening and closing by themselves at the inn, and objects seem to move around by themselves in certain rooms. It's not uncommon to hear little footsteps running down empty hallways. Whether these incidents result from trickster spirits or ghosts from a parallel time, no one can say. In the late 1960s, when the Balance Rock Inn was still a private home, the Hutchins family lived there. Each still remembers paranormal occurrences that took place in the house. Bobby Lynn Hutchins recalls, as a girl, having a distinct feeling that a ghost was living in her bedroom. One night she learned that her ghost might be real. Bobby Lynn planned to sleep elsewhere for the weekend, and as she walked into her bedroom, she teased her ghost by saying to herself, "I'm not even going to be sleeping here, so the joke's on you." At that moment, her feet flew out from under her and she fell, startled to the floor. Bobby Lynn has excellent balance, and nothing like this has ever happened before, or since. Her sister Suzanne also had an encounter with a trickster spirit. She was walking down the second-floor hallway and distinctly heard something clap loudly in front of her face. But yet, she was all alone in the corridor. Stranger still are sightings of phantoms at the inn. The figure of a minister sometimes appears facing a second-floor window, and people have heard his voice gently admonishing ghostly children who sometimes run laughing down up the upstairs hall. Could this be the same apparition seen by the residents of the property in the early 80s, long after it had been sold by the Hutchins family? At the time, the figure of an old man was apt to appear walking around the mansion. One of the most remarkable sightings took place in the gardens overlooking the shore path. As Bobby Lynn and Suzanne remembered the story, their father was mowing the lawn when he noticed a woman who appeared as if transported from the early 1900s. She wore a long skirt and a tall collar, and her hair was crimped. What stood out most, however, was the look of confusion, if not utter horror, on her face as she stared at the lawnmower. Not far from Balance Rock, the shore path passes Devilstone, an estate partly dismantled in the 1960s, with Reef Point appearing in the distance. The path approaches the long breakwater that shelters Bar Harbor from the sea. According to local lore, J.P. Morgan built the granite barrier to stop the waves from rocking his yacht and spilling his guests' drinks. Nearby is a somber mansion notable for its size and style. The Mammoth House looms right over the shore path, and unlike the shingle-style estates lining the trail, this mansion is built of stone and half timbers in the Tudor Riviera style. Now known as Atlantique, the estate's original name was the Breakwater. The architect Fred Savage designed the mansion, built in 1904 for the great-grandson of John Jacob Astor. Builders spared no expense in the construction of the palatial residence, even adding secret passageways and a hidden staircase. The Breakwater is arguably the most beautiful home on the shore path, and the most haunted. The great gloomy hall contains the spirits of former residents who insist on making their ghostly presence known. A dumbwaiter, now completely non-functioning and even covered up inside the house, sometimes acts on its own. From within the walls, the old elevator suddenly starts up, creaking as it makes its ascent or descent, carrying invisible contents summoned from another world. Different owners over the years have grown accustomed to hearing voices in empty rooms, and the staff has a particularly difficult time keeping the mansion clean since the ghosts of the Breakwater continually leave their impressions. It is not uncommon for a housekeeper to make a bed and then turn away, only to turn back around to discover that it looks as if someone had just been lying on it. The cover is unaccountably wrinkled and sunken. Indentations of invisible heads appear on pillows, and freshly vacuumed carpets reveal new footprints only seconds later. It's no wonder staff members are edgy and easily startled when working alone, but the signs of ghostly inhabitants are a continual reminder that the living share quarters with the dead at the Breakwater. Crossing a little wooden bridge, the shore path comes to an end at Wayman Lane, which returns to the village. Truly, the path offers an unforgettable experience. As it winds along the rocky shoreline, the trail brushes past a remarkable number of ghosts. From the many spirits who refuse to leave the gilded mansions in which they lived and died, to the forlorn wraith of a bereft mother appearing over the centuries at Hardy's Point. The shore path provides a uniquely haunting experience, leading travelers on a tour of Bar Harbor's legendary sites of the supernatural. Hey guys, Reaper here. I just wanted to thank you all for either watching or listening, whether you're on YouTube or Spotify. This story was brought to you from Ghosts of Acadia, written by Marcus Labrizzi and published by Down East Books. I wanted to give both of them a huge thank you and a huge shout out for letting me bring this book to you guys, whether it's in audio form on Spotify or in video form on YouTube. If you want to check out the book for yourself, I will leave a link down below in the description in both Spotify and on YouTube, so you can go check out the book for yourself and support the original author and original publisher. New story coming out tomorrow night. And until then, remember, sleep well, my friends.